Hello everyone, Sir David Chaos here. Today we will be examining a topic that's long overdue for discussion. Today we will be discussing grinders. I will attempt to keep this as objective as possible, unlike many similar videos about griefers posted by those on the other side of things. Without further ado, let's begin our analysis of these players. Not everyone who takes part in money-making activities in this game is a grinder. Simply earning money doesn't make you a grinder, nor does doing a few heists. Grinding, for the purposes of this video, refers explicitly to players who prioritize earning GTA bucks above all else. These are players who spend many hours sourcing crates, doing air freight shipments, or using any of the other cargo-related activities in GTA Online as their primary source of income. Here are two examples of different players in GTA Online to help you understand the difference between a grinder and a normal player. Player A logs on, notices that his nightclub has stock to sell and does so, buys supplies for his bunker, then heads off to do a heist with his friends, or perhaps solo Cayo Perico, then takes part in a few races and a free mode activity before calling it a day. He may do these activities in an invite-only lobby to avoid trouble or enter a public lobby if he feels bold. If someone kills him during any of this, he laughs it off because he knows that GTA Online is just a game and not worth getting upset over. Overall, he's very casual, and although he may take part in occasional activities that grinders are known to obsess over, he never gets deep enough to be anything other than a casual player. Player B left his computer on overnight to allow his MC businesses to accumulate product. As soon as he wakes up, he heads to his computer, then navigates his character to the nearest property. He spends the next 4 hours selling product, sourcing new supplies manually, and doing VIP work in between. He likely does this all in a public session because he wants to utilize the full lobby bonus to maximize profits. He doesn't think other players will or should grief him. If he does get griefed and some of his cargo is destroyed, he rages in chat or through text, often utilizing personal insults and urging whoever attacked him to self-harm. He does not understand the separation between the game world and reality and sees aggression towards his character as a violent personal attack on par with breaking into his house or assaulting him in real life. Player B has also long since passed the point of needing more money. Thanks to grinding, he has all the cars, properties and outfits he could ever want. He grinds simply because he likes making money. Player A is a casual player. Player B is a hardcore grinder. Player A may have some overlap with Player B in regard to the activities he takes part in, but not enough to be categorized as the same type of player. For the purposes of this video, a grinder will be defined as any player with significant similarities to Player B. To understand why grinders enjoy grinding and why they get so upset when anyone disrupts their grind, we must keep something in mind. Grinding is, to put it bluntly, pointless. While it could be argued that all activities within any game not done for real-world fame or profit are fundamentally pointless, grinding in GTA Online is uniquely without point because it is inefficient. Outdated content like special cargo is an objectively bad way to make money in this game. The supply and sale missions for special cargo, air freight, gun-running shipments and MC product are absolutely awful, with slow, weak vehicles, long drives and obnoxious enemies. Vehicle cargo is mediocre at best and the payout is negligible. The only property-related content worth doing is nightclub sale missions and selling acid. And even those are questionable, especially the nightclub, since to even get product you have to first buy MC properties. The content is simply not enjoyable enough to take part in unless you enjoy them for their own sake. Heists remain the best way to earn money, even with recent nerfs to Cayo Perico. Players may or may not choose to abuse replay exploits or glitch through doors to get gold while solo, but even without these methods, heists dwarf grinding in terms of time efficiency by a considerable margin. Knowing all that, we can say one thing with confidence: grinding is boring, and the only reason to take part in it is if you enjoy that kind of content. It isn't exciting, it isn't novel, it's unexciting, predictable, repetitive content. It's the kind of thing you do in real life for minimum wage while listening to music or a podcast so you can pay the bills. There is, in this world, a very specific kind of person who very much enjoys things that are predictable and repetitive. They don't enjoy change or disruption and get upset when things are not as they should be. While it's a natural human tendency to avoid unpredictability to an extent, this type of person takes it to an extreme. You've undoubtedly met people like this in real life. These are the auditors, librarians, and assembly line workers of the world. It's highly likely that these same people are the grinders of GTA Online. Their need for predictable progression with unchanging goals motivates them to seek out those same things in games. While some players get their dopamine rush while gaming from engaging in fast-paced activities with many variables, grinders prefer slow-paced, linear gameplay with clear-cut objectives. This idea is unintentionally reinforced by popular YouTubers who post videos with titles along the lines of $100 million spending spree or buying all the cars. They don't grind money to buy these things. They have the money to buy them because they grind for their own reasons and end up with the money to post such videos as a result. This is part of why they get so upset when their grind is interrupted by griefers. It isn't the simple act of being attacked that frustrates grinders quite so much as the fact that their task has been disrupted and is now significantly less repetitive and predictable. In an ideal world for grinders, GTA Online would contain no PvP at all. Tryhards, griefers, and even level 10 noobs following Rockstar's instructions and attacking cargo shipments all represent intolerable levels of chaos and unpredictability for grinders. In their eyes, the game would be much better off if it was as repetitive and unchanging as possible. In short, grinders grind because it's boring. It's a clear-cut task with the same objectives every time, with regular rewards and linear progression. This also explains why grinders are often completely unwilling to change any part of their behavior or methodology to avoid griefers. They are simply adverse to change of any kind, including changing themselves. A grinder would much prefer attempting to insult, harass and shame others into conforming to their idea of what GTA Online should be. To them, change is a bad thing. After all, if they enjoyed dynamic environments and unpredictable scenarios, they wouldn't choose to grind for 12 hours a day. They would get bored and go do something else. If you've ever told a grinder that all they need to do to avoid being griefed is to do cargo missions in private lobbies, you've undoubtedly seen this concept in action. This also provides an explanation for why grinders are often so unbelievably toxic and angry anytime they happen across griefing content, whether it's cargo griefing or just killing random players. They become so enraged that someone would disrupt a grinder's precious monotony that their brains go into overdrive, spewing out every insult they can think of. They can't accept that some people simply play the game differently than they do and leave them be. They must comment and let their anger be known to all. Usually these insults are mind-numbingly generic, usually containing some combination of references to one's sexual ability, general attractiveness, social life, or relationship with their parents. These are the most common things that upset grinders will say, and also the most boring. Occasionally, a slightly more literate grinder may attempt to conduct an armchair psychological analysis of the griefer in question. This could mean making all sorts of assumptions, such as claiming that the griefer has various mental illnesses such as sociopathy or psychosis, or they might simply accuse them of having an awful life and needing to take their frustrations out on others. What grinders fail to understand about griefers are three key points. First of all, some players simply enjoy PvP in this game. They don't attack others because they feel any particular way towards them, or because they want them to suffer. They just enjoy fighting other players in GTA Online and don't see any harm in doing so. The assumption that anyone who griefs in this game must be a loser is patently false. Without knowing more about the motivations and personality of the griefer in question, the only thing that can be said for sure is that they like fighting. Secondly, behavior in a video game does not dictate morality in real life. It's entirely possible to be a friendly, caring person while out and about in real life, and to then go home and start killing players in GTA Online. It's just a game, a fake and imaginary world with little to no impact on the real world. Grinders have a hard time grasping this concept, since to them, the game often is their life, which is incredibly ironic, since one of the first things they usually say when griefed is "get a life," or something similar. Either way, since no one really loses or gains anything particularly quantifiable by either griefing or being griefed, behavior in a game is essentially incapable of being assigned moral status unless it's so egregious that it spills over into the real world, such as if someone chooses to DDoS another player. Finally, griefers often think their reactions are funny. While griefers grief for a variety of reasons, many do it because they think that the comically overstated reactions of other players are absolutely hilarious. It's cartoonishly ridiculous how upset some players will get over inconsequential things like getting killed once, and by giving griefers these reactions, grinders are playing right into their hands. They once again fail to understand that they themselves are causing their own suffering by enabling and encouraging other players to attack them. Anyone who's ever pranked someone else knows how amusing it can be to harmlessly mess with someone. And grinders are the game equivalent of someone who turns beet red and starts screaming at the top of their lungs because someone put a whoopee cushion on their chair while they weren't looking. In essence, grinders are akin to the stereotypical Karen archetype. They are the sort of people who would show up at a restaurant on the busiest holiday of the year and demand immediate service, then complain to corporate when their meal takes 1 instant longer than expected or is imperfect in any way. To them, only their views are correct and only their way of doing things is valid. To them, anyone who does things differently or disrupts their activities in any way is an evil villain who hates all that is good and holy. They will go to any lengths to try to force others to agree with them and do what they want, including making fraudulent reports, spewing toxic insults, or even just cheating, since they refuse to learn the necessary skills to fight back through normal means. As another example of this kind of behavior and mindset in real life, imagine you're driving. You're going a reasonable speed and keeping an eye out for potential dangers on the road. As you make your way to your destination, you are suddenly cut off by another car, which you narrowly avoid hitting. They turned onto the road without bothering to check if their path was clear and almost caused a wreck as a result. Out of a combination of frustration, adrenaline and indignance, you sound your horn. The other driver, rather than accepting that they almost made a fatal mistake and are entirely at fault, slams their brakes in an attempt to force you to hit them. They stick their arm out of the window and flip you the bird. Then they speed off, back on course to wherever they were headed to before they almost killed you. These kinds of drivers will never learn, since they refuse to accept that the world is not responsible for changing itself to make their way of life possible. Their rigid adherence to their way of doing things, their lack of ability to adopt new methods and strategies, and their closed-mindedness all render them incapable of changing in the face of adversity. In the same way that restaurant Karens and entitled drivers fully believe that they're right about everything and only their opinions and methods are correct, grinders believe that only they should be allowed to decide what happens in GTA Online lobbies. To them, no other playstyle is valid, no other way of interacting with the world and other players is acceptable, and no one else should ever be allowed to do something they wouldn't. To them, it's perfectly normal to play in public lobbies and explode in anger when they inevitably get killed or when their cargo is destroyed. The simple solution of playing in private lobbies where griefers cannot touch them is unthinkable. Other players should simply not grief. After all, the grinder doesn't grief, so why would anyone else? Regardless of any debate about the morality of griefing, or lack thereof, the fact remains that there will always be players who choose to grief, even if for no other reason than simply because they can. GTA Online allows this play style, and like all things within the realm of possibility, there will inevitably be people who choose to partake. Griefers have always existed and will continue to exist as long as there are public lobbies, no matter how strongly grinders believe that they shouldn't. Red-eyed, armour-clad, high KD players in one's lobby are almost guaranteed to be aggressive. Expecting otherwise is like driving a brand new sports car into the nastiest part of town, leaving it there overnight with the doors unlocked, and expecting it to be safe and untouched when you return. Obviously, it's wrong to break into cars or steal people's things, but this is entirely irrelevant, just as it's entirely irrelevant to say that griefing is wrong. It simply doesn't matter. Expecting thieves not to steal your stuff because it's wrong is just as misguided as expecting the person currently spamming L's in chat to not destroy your cargo. Would it make sense to get on the freeway during rush hour and expect no traffic? Would it make sense to walk unarmed through the ghetto, covered in expensive jewellery, and expect to leave unscathed? Would it be reasonable to put a plate full of delicious bacon on the floor in a house where a dog lives and expect it to still be there after being left unattended for several hours? The answer to all of these things is no. Morality, fairness, and one's beliefs about what ought to happen play absolutely no part in deciding what happens in these scenarios. The world works the way it does, regardless of how one feels about it. Likewise, these concepts play absolutely no part in deciding whether or not one will be griefed in a public lobby, and it's unrealistic to expect otherwise. While outwardly simple and straightforward, the attitudes and motivations of grinders are more complex when properly dissected. They can be summarized as follows. Their desire to control how others play the game points to a distinct sense of entitlement and dogmatic close-mindedness. This is further reinforced by their extreme anger and toxic outbursts towards other players. Their dysfunctional reactions to unexpected situations, obsession with monotony and repetition, and their outright refusal to change or adapt indicates a rigid and inflexible personality. In short, grinders are more or less a combination of the classical boomer and Karen stereotypes. To summarize all of this, or perhaps to give impatient watchers a TLDR to fast forward to, 1. Grinders grind because they enjoy repetitive tasks. 2. Grinders hate disruption because it makes their task less repetitive. They do not like change or unpredictability. 3. Grinders have rigid worldviews and are often unreasonably hostile to those who choose to enjoy different aspects of the game, especially if PvP is involved. 4. Grinders refuse to understand or accept that there are playstyles other than their own. And 5. Grinders absolutely refuse to change their own actions to achieve their desired result. Rather, they expect others to conform to their desires and uphold their worldviews and beliefs. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope it has helped you to better understand how grinders think and behave. If you enjoyed watching, please consider liking and subscribing. I enjoy creating this kind of content and will most assuredly be making more similar videos. Thanks again and have a wonderful day.